So Reverend Moon is Jesus Christ in another body 2,000 years later? Is that what he's claiming?
The story he proclaimed is when he was, I think, either 15 or 16, he was like praying on a mountain, and Jesus came to him and said to take over his mission. And according to Moon, Moon was like, "No, I can't. It would be too much of an honor or something." And Jesus begged him, like, "Please, you're the one." So, according to Moon, he was like, "Fine, I'll do it." And then he started, his gospel in Korea, and also, but if you Google this, there's actually a Wikipedia page with a long list of century by century of everyone who said they're the second coming of Jesus. So he's one of hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
Trigger warning, this podcast contains mature themes and discussions of cults, manipulation, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking, where we expose the dark side of control, manipulation, and the human stories behind them. I'm Anonymous Andrew, executive producer and investigator into cult dynamics and coercive control.
And I'm Melody, a cult survivor and advocate for awareness and healing.
This is Cultimatum. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Cultimatum Podcast, a culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Andrew, and with me tonight is my co-host, Melody. Melody, tell us who we have on the show today.
Andrew, today we are joined by Teddy Hose, a former member of the Unification Church, often referred to as the Moonies, born and raised inside the group under the leadership of Sun Young Moon, who claimed to be the second coming of Jesus. Teddy grew up in the inner circle with parents who held high-ranking roles. Teddy has been featured in the Netflix I think it's a documentary called Explained, and also How to Become a Cult Leader, as well as A&E's Cult and Extreme Beliefs. Today, he's a multimedia designer based in Brooklyn, using his voice to raise awareness and spark critical conversations. Teddy, welcome to Cultimatum.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. I'm excited, especially I love guests who have been on other documentaries already. It's just, to me, it's like I'm talking to somebody who's, unfortunately, in your situation, a superstar. So,
Yeah, I tell people, like, for all the wrong reasons, but
all the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah.
You got the fame, but not for the right reasons. So, anyway, where would you like to start?
You're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Your story.
I guess I gave you a little background. All right. So I was born into the Unification Church, which is now known as FFWPU, Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, as well as like a few other splinter groups. But that's like the mainstream one, where after the founder died in 2012, his wife took over. And I actually grew up in the town where the Moon family lived, because my parents were some of the earliest members in America. And they held high-ranking positions. My dad was the managing director of the World Mission Department, which was at the New Yorker Hotel, right by Madison Square Garden in New York City. And my mom worked there as well. Because of that, we kind of had inner circle status. I have to admit that we had like a nice house in the church, but we got to go to public school, and that was like a very kind of like anxious and worrisome experience for me. It was very traumatic, just feeling very closed, and like I could barely look my teachers or other students in the eye, because I didn't want them to know that I was in this cult that was in the town that everyone knew about, right? So that's why I do a lot of therapy. But and then when I was 13, we moved to Seattle. It was actually under Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who was the cult leader's direction to just spread the witnessing effort to other cities, other parts of the world. And I should tell you about him. So it's a Christian religion mainly. He believes he's the second coming of Jesus, and he also works lobbying politicians. Mostly, it's been like right politicians. Let's see. Where can I go from here? So when my family was in Seattle, we kind of phased out of it. We had to kind of process and like adapt to the real world. Yeah, it was that was a trial. Let's see.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I think we've had a
how many Moonies on? 2?
I've heard 2. Yeah.
Okay.
2,
yeah,
and then we have
caught
one
wind.
recorded that hasn't aired
Okay.
yet. Yeah.
Oh,
I
very cool.
think this is the first time, and I could be wrong, that I've heard that their mantra is that he's the second coming of Christ.
Really?
So
Oh.
I remember I'm the outsider. I don't know a lot. So in the Catholic world, we're still waiting for Jesus to come back. And I say that as if I'm actually Catholic waiting for him, but I'm not. But and in the Jewish world, they say that, yeah, there was a Jesus, but he's I think they're waiting for him to come back too. I forget. So Reverend Moon is Jesus Christ in another body 2,000 years later? Is that what he's claiming?
The story he proclaimed is when he was, I think, either 15 or 16, he was like praying on a mountain, and Jesus came to him and said to take over his mission. And according to Moon was like, no, I can't. It would be too much of an honor or something. And Jesus begged him, like, please, you're the one. So according to Moon, he was like, fine, I'll do it. And, then he started, his gospel in Korea. And also, but if you Google this, there's actually a Wikipedia page with a long list of century by century of everyone who said they're the second coming of Jesus. So he's one of hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
And I was just going to say that there has been a lot of, and I'll call them nut jobs, that said that I'm Jesus. And what made him what made him stand out so much? Because he actually became something. I created this big cult.
Yeah, I've been actually listening to other podcasts and like seeing other content of other people who did the deep dive on Unification Church. Like I've never heard because I grew up in it and they give you this propaganda. So some people claim that like he was this very promiscuous person. One person claimed that he was notorious for he was just one of those really shady pastors, one of those really shady ministers who like hooks up with women. And according to one researcher, she said that he would deliberately hook up with like wives of rich husbands so that he would convince the wife to like give the money from the husband to him. So allegedly he's always been this sinister character and he knew how to win people over. And then he, it just blew up.
And let me clarify, he is no longer alive, right? Isn't his wife now running the show?
Yeah, he died in 2012. And his wife is, Hak Jahan is running the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, which they actually are currently, I believe, undergoing another name change because they were dissolved in Japan, which is their main funding source was in Japan. And she's being detained because she was actually caught bribing the former first lady of Korea by giving her the gift of 2 expensive Chanel bags. And this was like a dictatorial leader named President Yoon. This was about a year ago, I believe. And so, she just got caught in the undertow. The whole country protested and he got, ousted. And then they were just like kind of, looking for whoever was associated with him. And so, it's interesting times for the Unification Church.
I find it interesting that when he passed away, I guess I can understand when the first Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, passed away or was crucified. He rose 3 days later, but then went up to heaven. But the apostles, right, or disciples, they continued on his preachings, right? So I guess I can understand why they did the same thing, the Moonies, but you're saying she's locked up somewhere. So is this church alive and well with her locked up? How are the Moonies continuing on? If so, Reverend's dead, the wife is in jail, but the rest of the people are still going. And I think you said that that's normal in cult worlds, that they even get more into it.
But, and at the same time, when I posted about it, like I remember what it was like for my family to move from New York to Seattle. And from there, we were phasing out of the church. And with that, we were phasing out of like all the resources, all the support. And like, that's a really hard experience, especially financially. Like if your parents don't have financial savvy, like my parents come from blue collar backgrounds and they never had like a career real world job because they joined in college, which is when a lot of people join cults. And my dad had to start his career as a like mural artist in his late 40s, and my mom did stay home jobs. So I posted about this to like church members in general, just I was like, hey, I know you guys are going through like a hard time. And like, I wasn't like, haha, see, she's like a criminal. Like, no, I was like, my heart goes out to you guys. And like, please, learn to trust these resources out there who are going to help you get back on your feet. And, I think the more they interact with people outside of that echo chamber, the more, it'll naturally just kind of dissolve and water down the extremism.
So, being part of that inner circle, did you witness anything that outsiders wouldn't typically see, or maybe even a general member wouldn't have seen or experienced because of being in more of that inner circle?
For sure, yeah. Definitely. There was a book called In the Shadow of the Moons that came out in 1999. It was written by Hyojin Moon, his wife, his abused wife, because he was like an abuser. He was a very violent kind of, unpredictable person. Like that kind of behavior from the Moons, I call them a mob family because they just, you could just tell that they were megalomaniacs. They treated people like toys. My brother, as a little kid, like he would go over and play with them. And, one time he was in the pool and one of the Moons jumped on him like he was a swim toy, like he was a floaty, and he almost drowned. And after that day, he just told our caretaker, like, I don't ever want to go back there again. So like that's just a glimpse of like how the Moons treated people around them. They don't really have friends.
Was that known outside of the inner circle to?
No, not like people when Moon or one of his family members came to town, like in another state or another country, they were like, what an honor. And it was just like this huge thing. But all of us who lived around them were like, bow, but like, don't get too close. You might get hurt. You might get beat up, like literally.
Okay. Because I think if I found out that this leader of this organization that I joined was doing things, I always go back to this. I would just leave, but the answer that I keep getting from the ex-cult world is that you're already indoctrinated and you believe that this is, or you don't listen to that rhetoric. So, okay.
Right.
So you said when you moved to Seattle with your family, and then I'm assuming that if you were, I think you said you were like a teenager, like 13 or something.
Yeah.
And your parents left. So you didn't choose to leave. Your parents left and you kind of just deconstructed along with your parents? Or could you kind of walk us through that and kind of explain that?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up that question. It was very complex because when you're born into it and that's all you know, like this is how you survive in this community. All your resources come from this. You just have to believe in the ideology. You have to play along, and that's all you know as a kid. There's no like safe person outside of that to talk to. You'll defend it even if it's abusive. Like that's all I knew. So for my parents to start phasing out of it, they had anyone who joins a cult has something called a pre-cult identity. And so like they could refer to that. They could be like, yeah, maybe I can get a job outside of this or something, or I can go back to talking to people like I used to in a natural way without all these rules. And to us, we were, as kids, we're kind of scared of that. So yeah, I was like 18 when my parents told me more or less that they didn't believe, Moon was the Messiah. And they said I didn't have to go to the arranged marriage because that's, a big part of the Unification Church is the arranged marriages, which I was groomed to go to as a kid, when I grew up. So it was hard, and it took years for me to kind of come to that realization myself that I was done.
Did they tell you how they came to that, or why they came to that conclusion that he was not the Messiah?
Not really. I think that's the thing is like in the Unification Church, like the way they teach you how families work is like, children just obey the parents, and
Right.
It's very kind of top down. So like they don't really explain things as if we're people who think about, I think they would if they had felt the permission to. I think they cared, but
how old were you when they told you this?
I was 18.
Oh,
And yeah, I also I came back from like after high school. There's this frontline missionary work where you're basically labor trafficked. You go door to door and you sell trinkets for, the church or whatever. You also do service work, and you live in a church center in a random city that they choose for you. It's kind of like the Mormons, they do that 2-year thing after high school. And so I had just come back from that. I was like kind of indoctrinated again. I was just filled up on this, this journey of the church. So like I really didn't appreciate that. Kind of starkly told me they didn't have a lot of tact. But and I remember my sister did that program too. And we were both, my sister, I remember her saying like, we have to save our family, but we didn't know if that was the right answer. Like it was just very confusing. And I think this is where I say this quote from Margaret Singer, who maybe you're familiar with. She's a cult expert. She said that parents are middle managers in a cult, and it very much felt like that. Like it felt like my actual family, like the entity I belonged to, was the cult in that community, and they were our provider. They gave us events. They gave us all this stuff, and my parents were just there to kind of manage things locally.
So assume that then during this time, you're experiencing some kind of cognitive dissonance, but at some point you must have made the decision that you too were no longer going to be part of the church. Can you walk us through how you came to that conclusion, maybe on your own, separate from your parents, based on whatever conclusion you came to, or why you decided you weren't going to be part
And
of
how
it?
long after that your parents told you this, that they came out and said, we're no longer doing that? How long did it take you to jump on board that wagon?
For sure. I don't know if like Faith or Jung-hee told you this, but it kind of happens in layers usually, like leaving a cult. But for me, like the real, like, okay, I'm officially not a member anymore, was actually when one of Reverend Moon's sons died. He supposedly jumped out, like it's a mystery, but like he supposedly jumped out of a hotel window. He was depressed or something like that in Reno. He was maybe 20, and so this was 2 years later. I was also 20. I was about the same age. Reverend Moon, he used that as like, I remember he sent a message to members after that, and he said, this is your fault. Like you didn't have enough faith, and like look what you did, kind of, and like now I'm suffering because of you. And it just was so cold and it was so dark. And I was like, I get it now. This guy doesn't care about any of us as people. Like he's using us. Like I see it so clearly, because this son was actually, of all the violent brothers in that family of 13 kids, like there were 2 who were actually kind and sensitive, and he was one of them. Like he would play D&D with like the local kids and stuff, whereas his brother Sean Moon, who he was, closest in age to and always side by side with, that guy started the Rod of Iron Ministries, which is that weird gun cult, that started in Pennsylvania and now it's in Tennessee. But yeah, so I knew this kid, and he was, again, like he was an approachable, and I was like, really, no moment of silence for this kid? Like no talking about his life as a person? And it's like, and then later it's like, of course not. It was a cult, so very sad.
It's like he didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Yeah. So anyway, and then just for years after that, in my 20s, I would hang out with the kids I knew from the church. Also, we were all going through this kind of gray area. We were going to college, and it's like in college, like the church wanted us to go to college because I think they wanted us to have social status, so we'd continue to be good members and indoctrinate more people and stuff. But they didn't know that we would just learn that we really didn't need the church, or we didn't need to be, submit to to this authority and stuff. And then we started drop like flies. Yeah, drop off.
I'm shocked because a lot of the other cults prohibit you from going to mainstream colleges. They want you to go. I think the Mormons have their own college, or the Latter-day Saints. So they want you to go, either not go or go to one that they approve of, to send you to. So like, where did you go to college, if you want to say?
Well, actually, that's kind of interesting because for the first 2 years, I went to the University of Bridgeport, which actually the Unification Church was trying to acquire and turn it into like a Unification Church school. But I knew I wasn't going to go there the whole 4 years. I kind of wanted like a college experience. And, eventually I transferred to the School of Visual Arts in New York and studied animation. Now I do more video editing, but that's kind of what I do now. I'm a multimedia designer.
Very cool.
Has that particular career helped you at all in the process of your deconstruction, or have you used that talent as part of your deconstruction in any way?
I edit social media videos and I'm good with timing and, I guess lighting and sound. Yeah.
So do you
Uh,
create any of your own videos like for social media that is in the cult realm or the cult world?
Yeah, that's kind of my thing these days. I used to be like in bands, or I for a while I tried stand-up comedy just at open mics. I never got too far with that. But now my thing is like, well, we're living in this like very extreme time, very polarized time where these politicians are saying these wacky religious things. And this is all stuff that I think anyone who grew up in a cult foresaw. Like I wrote about this in the Huffington Post as a contributor article, like right after Trump's first inauguration. I was like, I'm seeing extremism that, looks familiar. And I just broke it down and put citations and everything. Like, you guys, this is serious. And I just, there's so much for me to talk about. I kind of determined to do, this is the first time I'm putting it in a recording. I told myself I do one video a week, like for social media. And I'm determined to keep doing that because there's just so much to talk about.
So I want to go back to the stand-up comedy because we've had one other guest say that he used comedy or in particular stand-up comics as part of his deconstruction process. Was that part of your deconstruction process, and or did you use your cult experience in some of the jokes that you came up with at all?
Yeah, oh, totally. I was trying, I did one set. Well, let's see. A lot of it depends on the crowd. That's one thing I learned in comedy. I was taking a class at, so there's this podcast production network called Maximum Fun. And I went to their retreat in the summertime where you can take classes, and there was a stand-up comedy class, and that's where I first tried my like cult themed stand-up comedy show, where I told a story of, well, first I talk about the cult and some of the crazy beliefs, but I also told the story that I've never said publicly, where when we were being labor trafficked, we're basically going door to door and selling. It's like the van is just driving and dropping off other people around different towns. So you're just all alone. Like an old man invited me into his house, and he wasn't like, luckily he wasn't jacked or anything, but he basically made like a sexual advance at me. And I just kind of, it was so shocking, and I just kind of hobbled out of there. And he was really apologetic, but it just goes to show that like this is so dangerous, and people have died, and people have been assaulted, and these are the practices of the Unification Church. They don't care. They're just like, make money, and then they just put spiritual language around it to keep you motivated. Anyway, but I turned that into a comedy joke. So anyway,
and was it well received? Because I can't. Before I started this podcast, I knew very little about cults other than what the average person hears in the news or whatever. That's why I got into this, because I was really wanted to investigate it. I think if you tell a cult joke and they don't understand because they don't know what the real inside of, so give me an example. Tell us a joke.
Oh boy, that's what any stand-up comedian hates to hear. Tell me a joke.
Tell me a joke. But I just want to make a point to see if I get the joke, or does somebody,
especially on the spot like that.
Okay, well, there's like a build up to it, but like the essence of it is I just say like, yeah, so I showed him what I was selling. Basically it was like this cheap kind of like stained glass looking art done with shells. And he was like, can I be honest with you? I'm not totally remembering it, by the way. This was maybe like 5 years ago. And I was like, sure. And he goes, I'll give you $50 if you let me suck your blank. And I was like, sorry, I'm already in a cult, so I can't join the Catholic Church. I'm sorry.
Now see, that's funny.
Oh man.
That's funny. Okay.
Okay, I was wondering, how does this become a joke? But
now I get it. Okay.
And actually, furthermore about this stand-up thing, it was a stand-up comedian's joke that put me on this path of actually being a whistleblower. This was a long time ago. 2009 is when I decided to start talking about it, because I was listening to, at the time, an iTunes station, if you remember iTunes. Mm-hmm. And it was just comedy clips just played all day on this radio thing. And this, I don't know which comedian it is. I looked for it everywhere. I can't find it. I think it was Christopher Titus, but he talks about like how his parents died on stage. Like, I was like, whoa, like it was like the darkest thing I've ever heard in a stand-up comedian's joke. He said something like, the police called me one night and said, I'm sorry, your father died in a car accident. And his first question was, how's the car? So like that was the gag. And I was like, whoa, like if that guy can tell his deepest, darkest secret, what's my deepest, darkest secret? And right away, very obviously, like, oh, of course. And so at first I wanted to talk about it in a way that was balanced. And like, I didn't want the media or, viewing it from the inside, the media, all you see is the media is calling you cult and I'm being persecuted and negative and shamed. But this was the first time I was looking at it from the outside in, like with a critical lens. And it only took like a week or two to be like, the media was absolutely correct about absolutely everything. Yeah. And, by that time I was like 30. So I had time to process things before that. But yeah.
See, I like the idea of using humor. I mean, even under these circumstances, because I laughed about some of it after I left with my family too. I mean, we laughed about the fact that my mom's first reaction when we got some of the literature and she'd seen some of what they referred to as their holy garments, my mom's first reaction was, this looks like a cult. And we all kind of laughed about that afterwards. We're like, Mom, you were right. We should have went with your first instinct. Why didn't we listen to you? And that was funny to us. In hindsight, it was funny, but there's some humor to it, but it's a little bit of a dark humor because we went through a lot of crap going through what we did, right? So, but sometimes you just got to be able to laugh about it. You either laugh or cry sometimes, and sometimes it's easier to laugh.
For sure.
All right. I have a question. So Melody mentioned at the beginning that you were, I'm just correct me if I'm wrong, you were in 2 documentaries, correct?
3 docuseries. Yeah. So it was like one episode of,
Okay.
Of a series. Yeah.
One was How to Become a Cult Leader on Netflix.
Yeah. That's the most recent one, 2023. I'm in
Want to
episode
talk about
6.
that a little bit? How you got involved, number one. Did somebody come to you, or did you go to Netflix or to a production company? And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Again, I started talking and putting it out there, and I was referenced in a few articles. I think I might have written some articles here and there over the years through the 2010s. So I was out there and floating around. So, but I think what made the big difference was I forgot what year, but maybe like almost 10 years ago, maybe 8 or so, the New York Times wrote an article about the history of sushi in America. And the largest supplier of sushi in America is a Unification Church company called True World Foods. And so that was the big, theme of the story. And after that, myself and other ex-Mooney whistleblowers started getting calls and like emails from all these production companies like, hey, that Mooney's story is hot right now. Basically we had to learn how to phase out who was kind of going to tell a better story versus who was the intern at their studio trying to pitch a story to climb the ladder.
Were they the same? This fish company, was it?
Yep.
Oh, it was. So they were into selling sushi from halfway across the world, I guess.
Yeah. And, just side note, the cult companies become wildly popular and are wildly successful because, members work for spiritual regions. They work for free or nothing. So, basically labor trafficking. And so after that, we just started getting calls. And then, one of them was a group called, what is it called? Citizen. Oh my God. I totally forgot the name. That's bad. Anyway, Citizen something. And they're the ones behind How to Become a Cult Leader. Oh, they had seen me in 2 documentaries before. I was in the A&E one, and then Explained, which is a Netflix series by Vox. There was one episode about cults. So I was in that maybe 4 years earlier. So they gave me a call, and then I interviewed.
And if I remember right, I've watched How to Be a Cult Leader. That's a little bit humorous itself, isn't it? It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's got a tone to it that is different than most cult documentaries.
Right. Yeah. It's Peter Dinklage. I was like, whoa, Peter Dinklage is telling our story. That's really interesting. Yeah. And in, what was it? Explained, it was Lakeith Stanfield from, the show Atlanta. He was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Sorry to Bother You. I mean, I didn't get to meet these narrators. They recorded on a different day or time. But no, it was pretty cool. But at the same time, some parts were a little cringy as a cult survivor. Like those things are always very sensitive. It's like you want the narrator, you want the crew to like be very well versed in it and to just know which things to hit and not. Some people really didn't like the tone of How to Become a Cult Leader. And
we'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
I was okay with it.
I just, when you couldn't think of the name, I Googled How to Become a Cult Leader on Netflix. And there's a lot out there. So it's very popular. But I came across a Reddit post. And the post says, did anyone else find How to Be a Cult Leader documentary to be a little too humorous? So, yeah, it was perceived as, at least if you're a Reddit person, they thought it was hilarious and or funny. And so I'm guessing that was not your objective or the producer's objective.
I think it was.
Oh, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. What would you say? What would you say, Teddy? Do you think? I think that was intentional.
Yeah, it's like it was like.
Well, the name alone is funny. How to Become a Cult Leader is kind of what it was, an oxymoron. Well, not an oxymoron, but it's like.
Well, basically, Andrew, they kind of mock the idea of what we talk about on our podcast. That do all these cult leaders get a handbook because they all behave in such a similar manner, using such similar tactics, that when you figure that out as an ex-cult leader, your mind is a little bit blown by that. You're just like, what? Yep. This is happening in all these different groups and they're using the same tactics my cult leader used, because you think your experience is unique. And then when you start talking to other survivors, it is really eye-opening to realize the similarities. It's almost scary, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's... that actually started to, that began my doubts as well. Like I taught, when my family was in Seattle, they were also in a community of like, there were some older church members of their time there. And when they joined the church back in the 60s and 70s, early in that time, it was before it got really extreme. It still felt like this little almost hippie community or new age community. And there was like a manager there or whatever who was like a lot friendlier than Sun Myung Moon, and then eventually they just climbed the ladder and they were put in situations they wanted that old time feeling. So one of them was talking critically about it. Like I was just randomly talking to her. This was maybe around the time I was 18 or 19, and I said, one of the hardest things about the church is that I was born with pure blood. Like the belief is that Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, and because of that, humanity was born of like a sinful humanity, basically. And original sin, yes. So Sun Myung Moon came, and like anyone who joins the Unification Church, their children will be cleansed of that sin. So we're like the perfect children, right? Which is,
But that's what the Catholics do. They baptize their children and cleanse them of original sin.
And that's exactly what she said. She's Jewish. She's like, I think the Jews said that too. Like she grew up in a Jewish place. So it's like, there you go. It's like cats out of the bag and all over the place.
Like he came up with something new. Come on.
Yeah. So they just, but when you're born into it, that's all you know.
I get it.
But yeah.
All right. Tell us about, so there was a second documentary, I think, and that was on A&E.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my first big one. That was in 2018. I just, I had Yanya Lalich was looking for people, and there were some other people, other ex-Moonies who let me know about it, and so they knew I was kind of an activist about this stuff, and they're like, yeah, let's have you come on and talk about this stuff, and they put on this one was particularly extreme because it was about Sean Moon, who was one of the youngest children of Reverend Sun Myung Moon, and his cult themed around the AR-15. It's now called the Rod of Iron Ministries. It used to be called World Peace and Unification Sanctuary. And in, I believe, the Book of Revelation, there's some quote about the Rod of Iron striking, evil or something. And they interpreted that as like guns. And the Moons have always been into weaponry. They love guns. They love, they're just megalomaniacs, and they're very much a mobster family. So, I think Moon's first company was a gun company in the late 60s. So he's always, again, he's always been this sinister guy who knew how to talk to religious people and abuse and manipulate them and help them and take their money. So yeah, basically Sean Moon was continuing in that tradition. And, he has like a bullet crown made of bullets, and all of his members kind of wear that as well. It's very kind of doomsday or, end times. So we have to be ready. And they worship, they have their rituals and services with guns in their hand. It's wild. I don't think they're going to do like some kind of mass militia thing, but he does like train the kids, and it's kind of weird. And, he rubs elbows with like Don Jr. He takes photos with him a lot because he loves guns, and, other far right people. Steve Bannon has come to his events, and what's his name? Mike, not, what was the Mike? He was like the military guy who some people thought he was Q from QAnon. Michael, shoot, I forgot his name. Anyway, I'm a lot of blanks today, but a lot of far right people. He's doing business with them because he has his dad's money.
Shock.
Yeah.
What a shock.
So, did you get a lot of pushback or any pushback from speaking out so publicly from anybody, family members, friends, other ex members of the Moonies, or did you not receive a lot of did you get a lot of support? The opposite.
One thing I'll say is, I think if you like look into a lot of these whistleblowers from different cults, it's usually people who had like somewhat of like a high rank. Like, I don't know what was it like for you, Melody? Did you have kind of an inner circle status? Or
I was married to the leader's son, so I was definitely closer to the inner circle.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, right there. Like, so I think, that seniority, like it kind of comes with you, or there's just, I don't know, like my parents were some of the earliest members of the church, and they were, they were compassionate people. I think people remember them as being like forgiving, like, whereas the leadership was very authoritarian. They would always kind of come in and do cleanup and like try to talk to members and be like, hey, don't feel down, or like, hey, talk to me about, they were very counselor like. So I think that won them a lot of just human respect, to where like people weren't, they weren't assholes or anything. So yeah, I think there's just an innate human thing of like, I can't help but respect these people in that way. And I'm, but the way to deal with the cognitive dissonance of that, becoming ex-Moonies, is they just, shut us off and be like, okay, well, I'm just not going to pay attention to that. But yeah, I think just that seniority, there's just like an air that you carry, and, other ex-members are like, whoa, you're really brave. But, I mean, that it's true. Like, it feels good, but I think it's also like, I knew it was happening, and I know how to like navigate the do's and don'ts of talking about this, to where I don't feel like they're going to come and attack me. Like,
Right.
Maybe if I had a lot of money and I took them to court, they'd be, clawing at me a little bit more. But,
Well, and I don't know about you, but I actually almost feel a sense of responsibility. Like, it's a sense of responsibility to me that
yeah.
I need to let people know the truth about this place. And so if that, there's that part of it too, that also comes with being maybe more part of the inner circle, that I need to speak out. I got to tell the truth about this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And while I, like I said before, and the audience knows, am not a survivor of a cult or ex-cult, I found it, I came across the Twin Flames Universe cult, which is an online silly cult.
Oh, yeah.
But they, at the time when they were at their peak, they were doing a lot of damage, and they were hurting a lot of people, and they were taking a lot of money. And I did a deep dive investigation into them, and that's what caught me and brought me into this. And then also human trafficking. And what I found was, and we've interviewed, Melody and I have interviewed a lot of people and experts who are saying that it's amazing so the drug world and the criminal world, I think either human trafficking and is the largest growing criminal activity in the world, above drugs and guns, and so. Let me circle back to your media graphics. And you said that you are trying to put out a video each week. I not only think you should do that, I think it we all does it each week, and we try to get it out each week. We have a podcast each week. I just don't think America and the government is aware, or they are, but they're ignoring it, how serious this is. And so, and I'm lumping in human trafficking because that's part of this. But these cults are very, very dangerous. And we've interviewed some people who have gone through some real horrible trauma. And there's people that have been killed. And anyway, you get, so the more we and us and the audience put out these videos, and because social media, let's face it, other than like documentaries like you're doing or have done, do you have anything coming up that you're working on?
It's funny. I just listened to your Ryan Hernandez, right? That's his last name.
That was
episode, and I was just on his podcast. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the latest. With documentaries, that comes like not very often, so they just give me a call. Yeah.
Okay. I just think we're doing our jobs of getting, and Melody's doing a fantastic job, but more awareness needs to be. We need to get more out there.
I think the problem is that cults are free money, and a lot of politicians can be bought. Unfortunately, our policies around that have been deteriorated, or if they even ever existed at all, and these politicians are just normalized, just raking in the free money. So that's what I always use this analogy when describing cults, like the ones that are doing very well, that have like a concentration of wealth and power and human trafficking. I describe them as like, they're like a dense bag of tea that you put in like a pitcher of water, and it just spreads throughout, like whether directly or not, or that about them, like that power and wealth and influence is going to get around because they have that to use. So, it often goes straight to the politicians. I know in the documentary, the program about that abusive, like troubled teen school that was also on Netflix, there's also like a little mention about how a lot of that money trickles to the top, and they say something like Mitt Romney or someone. And I'm just like, oh, just like the Moonies, like there's another thing in common. So yeah, it's unfortunately been just a normalized part of, it's like whoever has the most money wins. So I think that's a deeper issue.
I have one word or one name, and then we don't even have to talk about it, but Epstein. That just tells you right there what you're just talking about.
Right.
So all the people that were involved up there were very, and I would also say Scientology. How many millions and billionaires and celebrities were in there, and I guess brought in the lawmakers, congressmen, and so although thankfully I think they're slowly breaking apart, Scientology. I last I heard. So okay, we're coming up on starting to need to wrap up. I want to give you a chance to tell us anything else that we might have skipped over or you didn't get a chance to say, and then we're going to each ask you, Melody and I are going to ask you a question, and then we're going to find out where you are online and some of your great graphics, and then we'll say goodbye.
Thanks. Let's see. Anything else I want to say? I would just say, okay. First thing that came to mind is sometimes people will go into the comments of cults and be like, you're a cult, you're a cult, you're a cult, and I just want to tell people that like that almost makes them even believers even more. Like I think what cult members aren't ready for is if you actually speak to them like they're human and be like, that's like, why do you believe that? Or something like, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there, but I think just like starkly calling them a cult, it like
doesn't work.
When someone like me, who that's all I knew, and I was like, oh, there's the persecution that the cult leader and the staff told me I was going to get. Yeah. So like it's confirmation bias, and it just wires you even harder. So I don't know. I just hope, we have evolved a lot. I'm actually pretty impressed with how much people, not everyone in the comments does that as much anymore. Some people do explain things, and I'm just like, wow, it doesn't have to be me this time. So people are learning slowly, but I would just say, don't be quick to throw shade. It's a very complex thing, and it should be treated that way.
Totally agree. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, and we really didn't get into this, but I'm assuming if you were born into the Moonies and he was the second coming of Christ, I just have to laugh when I say that. The preachings must have been about God, right? And so you were, was it Catholic leaning towards?
Let's see. I don't know the subgroups of Christianity that well.
Okay.
It's definitely Christianity based, I think, at
Yeah.
least.
Now that you're out, how many years you're out?
Been out about 27 years. Yeah,
Oh,
dating
wow.
myself.
Okay. Where is your faith today?
My faith is, well, I guess I would consider myself agnostic. And when it comes to the afterlife or whatever, I just don't care at all. I'm like, look, I'm trying to survive in the richest country in the world, and I have no generational wealth. Like, I send money to my mom still, like we do as a family. So I'm just trying to make smart decisions now, load up my 401k every year before paying myself. Like, we all have to learn to survive, like financially and everything. And so, that's what I care about. If someone maybe has cancer or something, maybe I'll do a little prayer, just like, I think maybe there is something to sending energy or healing energy or something to people, when they need it. I've had a few instances where I could sense something before it kind of happened or something. I mean, but I'm not going to turn that into religion or like read a book about it or anything. I'll just like allow it to be and accept the things that I don't know, which is why I'm agnostic. So, yeah, I guess that's where I am with that.
Great answer. I like that. And I'm not too far behind you on that, although I do have a higher power in my life, but we'll skip that. Melody, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, you and I believe very similar that
Okay.
almost everything you said is exactly where I'm at spiritually. I'm like, maybe there's something out there, maybe there's not. Doesn't really matter. I'm just living. I know that here and now is here, so I'm going to live for today. But so I really enjoyed your answer because I was like, everything you said, I was like, oh, I agree with that. So Teddy, I guess my question is, if there's somebody out there that's in the Moonies or some other kind of cult or group and they're starting to have doubts, what would be your words of advice to them?
Boy, well, in my situation, it kind of hit me in the face with, again, the moon's son dying and how he handled that. But, I would just say maybe just look for other people who left and hear things out, trust that. I guess, well, I'll stop myself and say, I know you don't really learn to hone your critical thinking that much. They talk about mind over body, but it's code for like indoctrination over personal opinion. So, yeah, I would say just kind of listen. There's support groups online where people talk about everything. It's okay to talk about everything. And also like ask yourself, like, what do you want to be as an adult? Like, do you want to keep serving this like old Korean lady who is like saying, I'm glorious, right guys? Yeah. And like, it's like, do you want to keep doing that? Or do you want to like, travel to other countries and learn new things and have like interesting conversations and totally bask in the things that you enjoy and make that your life instead of, just being in your parents' community of the religion they chose. And, it's like, okay, they chose their religion. They made their bed. What's your choice? Are you just going to fall into place with your parents? Like, that's boring. Like, you're an adult, like make your own decisions. So,
and I just want to mention that your parents came to you and said, we're out. And I don't think we've heard too many of that, Melody, where the parents, we've heard where people were born into a cult and 18, 19, they just said, we're out. But the parents stayed in. Just the first, I shouldn't say first, but it's odd to hear the parents left before the kids did. Yeah. Interesting.
So your parents must have been deconstructing before you knew it. And you're probably thinking, why'd you send me on that mission trip if you were having doubts?
I know. They just, again, my parents, they came from kind of humble homes and suddenly they were in like a billionaire's utopia. And it was so hard to just get, to drop out. So I think that was it. Like they always had their doubts, always.
Oh,
but
wow.
It's about support and sustaining yourself as well.
Where can we find some of this wonderful artwork of yours online?
Okay. My professional site is teddyhose.tv. That's just my video editing I did for like ad agencies and entertainment networks and stuff like that. But my, cult whistleblower stuff is just my name at Teddy Hose on Instagram or Blue Sky. On TikTok, it's at 2D Hose, like, 2D graphics, 2D Hose. And Facebook is at Teddy Hose Works. Sorry, they're all different, but these social media things popped up at different times. And anyway,
Well,
I wish
the links will be in the show notes, so it'll be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will be checking it out. I have I'd like to see your work, especially in the cult community, the graphics that you're putting out each week. Where does that really, is that on Teddy or is that on Instagram mostly?
Oh, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, there is like a convenient list of all my cult media appearances and everything on Substack. It's my only post there. So if you search my name, Teddy Hose, I still haven't found another Teddy Hose in the world. So that you should be able to find that pretty easily.
That's pretty cool.
It's a weird name.
Well, that helps.
Yeah. Was it, just curious, was it Theodore and short for Teddy, or were you just named Teddy? It was Theodore. Okay.
Theodore. Yeah. And just an interesting side note. No one in the cult was named by their parents, at least in my generation and older. I was named by like the official, like the president of the church in America at the time, whose name was Neil Salonen. He said he had some revelation about like Theodore Roosevelt, and that's why I'm Teddy.
Interesting. Did you ask what the revelation was, or that was just his way of just giving you a new name?
Well, it wasn't a new name, but that was your birth name, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it's my birth name. Yeah. I didn't think too much about it.
There wasn't too much effort that went into that one, because your name is Theodore Hose, and he thought of Theodore Roosevelt, and there's not a lot of big stretch there. So anyway, wow, thank you. Learned a lot today, and we just can't appreciate and thank you for coming on and sharing your experience, strength, and hope.
Yes, thank you, Teddy.
Thanks so much for the opportunity too, and for your efforts. This is, things like this is what's changing the landscape and make people understand. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're all doing our part. Yeah.
And once again, we want to thank Teddy so much for coming on the show and sharing his story and his experience with us. Certainly a unique experience, as far as this is the first ex-Mooney or Unification Church member that we've talked to that is a male, for one. So that was unique. And and I think it's also the first one we've talked to that has done documentaries or spoke out in such a public way. So, and certainly he has a different perspective, also being that he was more on the inner circle as well. So,
correct.
Yeah.
And like I said towards the end, also, I just thought it was interesting that his parents left before he did.
Yes.
And, very interesting. Because
that is interesting. That was a new twist or a spin that I didn't see coming, because that one is one that you don't usually hear that.
Right.
Usually the parents are more ingrained than the children.
Right. We hear the kids leave and the parents are like, either they get cut off or they... you hear that a lot.
Shunned or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
So,
that was definitely a unique, interesting thing. And I guess worked out good for him, though, because I'm sure he now still has a relationship with his parents, because they're out and he's out, and that probably, worked in his favor. So he didn't have to deal with that.
He sends his mom money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he did mention that in that episode. So
yeah.
It was definitely a unique perspective as far as, and I did not know, and I don't remember another ex-Mooney mentioning. It must have just been because it was part of what woke him up, was the death of Sun Myung Moon's son that apparently committed suicide. I think that's
he said he jumped out
a window. How tragic. So I don't remember hearing that part of the story of the Moonies thus far of our other guest as well.
Which is why if we have another guest on from another cult that we've already done, you're always going to get something new. You're going to get a new perspective, a new story, a new something. And so,
exactly. Because everybody has their own individual experience inside the cult. Even though the cult's the same, their experience is each going to be different and unique. So, but Teddy, we so appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us and giving us your perspective and your encouragement, and we appreciate it, and continue doing what you're doing as well.
Yeah, keep putting out those videos.
Yes, as far as your advocacy work, it's appreciated, and it's a good thing that's out there. We want to bring all that awareness, as much awareness as we can about cults and cult survivors. So thanks again, Teddy, and also thank you to all of you for listening to Cultimatum. As always, thank you for listening to Cultimatum. We truly appreciate your support as we work to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It helps more people discover the podcast, creating a greater awareness. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep tuning in to our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for extra content and updates.
And be sure to join our Facebook community, Cultimatum Podcast, where we continue the conversations and keep you posted when new episodes drop.
And if you're a cult survivor looking for additional support and connection, we invite you to join the Facebook group, Cult Escape and Healing.
You can also find more information about the show, including our full legal disclaimer, on our websites at cultimatumpodcast.com or anonymousandrewpodcaststudios.com.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you'd like to share, you can reach us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by using the link in the show notes called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. Your support helps cover production costs and allows us to keep bringing these important stories to light.
Andrew here with a quick post edit. Before we wrap up, we'd like to give a heartfelt thank you to the listener who recently supported us with an incredible, generous $25 donation through Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. You know who you are, and your kindness truly means the world to us. Support like yours helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. From Melody and I, thank you so much.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.